Hello, I'm your host, Dan Cluche, and this is part 7. And we're going to cover in this both hydro and hydrogen, very briefly on the hydrogen piece. But essentially, what we're chatting about is hydro is great, and hydrogen is very interesting. And water is the giver of life, and so very, very impressive. And although we'd love to not have freshwater scarcity, the bulk of the water, um, about 99% of the water, is in the oceans. And uh, changing that around is very energy intensive. And so, as Dilbert's joking here, each of us must do his part to save energy. Scarcity, we rather not talk about scarcity, but that's like saying, well, let's not talk about reality. And so, as lots of the public does, we get so inundated with these messages and the complexity, and energy literacy is not easy or fun necessarily, blah blah blah. So screen 2 of the Dilbert cartoon, the guy falls asleep, of course, and Dilbert says, I could build a tiny hydro generator for his drool. Well, some of the stuff we're kind of getting at, is like, oh, well, geez, is that enough? Can we do that? And that's not fun either, of course. But we have to recognize reality, as I just said, and where are we at? What are those realities? Well, to produce 1 cubic mile of energy, which is equivalent to the amount of oil by itself that we use each year from hydropower, would require the construction of 153 three gorge dams. And that ends up being one every 4 months for the next 50 years. And that's problematic before we even look at the fact that that number of undammed rivers does not exist at those sizes. So that's just reality. Like it or not, it's just reality. See, only a third of the world's great rivers, as they say, remain free flowing. And the Guardian looked at this in some detail, very interestingly. And they say, obviously, billions of people rely on rivers for water, food, irrigation. Yeah, no doubt. Untouched rivers are largely confined to remote places such as the Arctic and in the Amazon. And the Amazon is pretty darn tapped, and that forest is so key to us. I'm not sure that it should be further disturbed. It would be great if we didn't. The Arctic is very fragile, so it would be great if we didn't. Of course, sending electricity from the Arctic and the amount of transmission wire and so forth, and same thing with the Amazon. All of it is logistically of some challenge for sure. And what the Guardian study found was when they did an assessment and they looked at these rivers, they found after examining 12 million kilometers of rivers that just 90 of the 246 rivers that made up more than 100 or 1,000 kilometers, pardon me, flowed without interruption. And so, we've tapped a whole lot of hydrogen. Those places, as I've said before, that are graced and blessed with it, fantastic. I'm sure we'll do some more interesting things. And harvesting the energy of the tides, as an example, is a really interesting one. Not not without challenges. There's lots of work being done trying to sort out exactly how to do that. But rivers might not be it, as National Geographic says. In this case, they were surveying 36 European countries, 1,700 miles of river by foot, and found at least 1.2 million obstacles preventing European rivers from flowing freely. And that's more than one barrier for every mile of river. Tapped. So, and now that was before we've had some current weather that has caused reductions. Who knows what next year's weather necessarily looks like? I don't. But that's the fact with hydrogen or hydro, and then when we go to hydrogen, we end up looking and like with so much else, we want more water. I was just reading a study that showed where carbon capture tends to increase water consumption. This study by an organization I've followed for a very long time, Water Smart Solutions, they just do wonderful work. They were looking at this with a number of utilities and partners and so forth. And they said how much water and hydrogen would be required to replace just 20% of the natural gas produced in Alberta. And what they ended up showing is that, water required to convert all natural gas produced in Alberta. And it says annual water consumption in Alberta, including projected demands for hydrogen production. It's just enormous. That's the bottom line. It's just absolutely enormous. And so we really have to think about how we can layer energy solutions, dealing with realities, not dealing what we want to believe or whatever. It was all pretty and nice to think that solar PV and wind would just replace our standard of living instantaneously, and that's that. Fossil fuels is turned off. It's not the case. There's a way to think through this stuff. It's not easy. You need energy literacy, and that's the point of this series. Thanks for watching.